Seve, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It's let's see what's recent. I've been messing around with free routing a lot recently. They're releasing an API.
They're releasing an API.
They're releasing an HTTP API.
Interesting.
API.freerouting.app.
Oh, interesting.
Please do not hit it so hard because I have, and I probably took it down a couple times. So,
okay, so it's a hosted free routing instance, basically.
it is a hosted free routing, and it's Andres, the guy we talked about last time. He has been working on deploying it, I believe, to Azure Cloud or something like that. But yeah, you can get free routing in the cloud, in theory.
Yeah. Cool.
If you have DSN files, which I had to write a DSN converter, and it's terrible. Spectra DSN.
It's been a little while since that spec was written.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And nobody's to spec anyway, so. But
So just before we started recording, you actually asked me about something else.
What was I asking? Oh yeah, pointing. That's right.
Pointing at things.
When you point at things, it makes it more likely that you're going to do the things that you're supposed to do, like a checkbox of things. You pointed it out.
Have you ever seen how they use this in Japan?
No, I don't think so.
So, like, famously, the Japanese train conductors do this. As they're going past, like, a sign or a signal.
They're like, get off the train.
Not quite to the people, but you'll see them basically dancing as they're going along the track. Like, they and the driver will, like, both point at the sign.
Oh, really?
Like, both, like, there's a full body thing, and, you put your right hand in, you take the right. No, not quite to the music. But no, seriously, because, and I think it's really interesting. I think it's really cool. It's to do exactly this, is to recognize the things, and by attaching an action to it, you feel this. And like, I've noticed myself with a few of these little habits. Do you have any? It's like you're doing something and you have like a tap as it goes.
Man, like a physical thing that I do when I'm doing something. I'm trying to think
Like,
what I do, which is just
tick, but an intentional habit. Do you have any?
an intentional habit. I probably do. I'm not sure. Do you have any intentional habits?
Yeah, I've got two. So the first one is that when I'm leaving the house, before I let the front door close all the way, I'll tap my left pocket where I always keep my keys.
Ah, that's smart.
And if it doesn't, and I realize I do it even if I've forgotten, or I've forgotten my keys or intentionally left the door open or whatever, just as it's getting closed, I feel my left hand go. I'm like, oh, wow. The brain is a really plastic thing, right?
I don't know if this is this. I think this is a different thing, but I'm trying to protect the head, the face, the skin a little bit more from the sun.
You're very pretty, man. So.
Thank you very much. Hey, I got to stay pretty though. I gotta keep it in here. But when I go outside, I feel that breeze on my head, and I immediately go back inside. But that's more like instigated by something. That's not the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar, but it's an interesting one. The other one that I was thinking of is
we're off to a good start here, Matt. I think with our hats.
The other one is when I'm walking around a factory, and this is something we actually taught at Tesla, sort of socially. It wasn't like a formal training anyway. Is like indicate where you're going. Stick your arm out before you walk around a corner in a factory, because there might be forklifts.
Yeah, it's like a restaurant. There's like always people coming from the corners.
There's people going everywhere amongst tight equipment, machinery. There's a lot going on. It's loud. You can't see, blah, blah, blah. If you stick your hand out into a hallway before you walk into it, you're much more likely to be seen, not run into other people, not be run into by equipment or a forklift or whatever. And if you do, and your hand gets tapped, it's a lot better than you know.
Makes sense. Pro tip for moving through crowds: stick your hand where you want to go and just weave through that crowd. I'm always doing
where
that.
Your hand goes.
Actually, I feel really bad because at least 2 times in my life, because sometimes you keep the hand a little bit lower, and at least 2 times somebody would gave me a look like, what? And I'm like, I'm just trying to get there. I'm sorry. Like, everybody's touching here, but
I am so sorry.
It's definitely a little bit awkward.
The 2 hands is good for that, because it's the back of the hands.
It's very difficult to nobody gropes somebody like this, I think.
That'd be really weird.
Wouldn't it be very back of the hand? It's not the same sensory experience.
That's at least the message you're trying to send. You're like, I'm really not trying to do anything here. Please let me leave. I just need to go towards the door.
So, have you heard of the new Windsurf IDE?
No. What is the new Windsurf IDE?
Big segue. Windsurf from Codium is this new IDE for that's like Cursor.
So it's another fork of continued.
It is
therefore.
yet another. No, actually, it's a VS Code fork, not a continue fork.
Oh, wow. Going down to the source material.
Going down the source material. It is basically Cursor, but from a different company. It's like I did some research. I didn't get a chance to like play with it myself.
Okay.
But I watched a lot of people using it for the first time. And my impression is basically there is now something that is basically Cursor that is not Cursor.
Okay. And how good is it?
You know, from what I saw, it's basically still coming down to the foundation model. So
Okay.
I'm not really sure how much there is to say about Windsurf. That was like my overwhelming impression was like sameness, you know, but it's good to have somebody else in the ring. Maybe
good to have competition.
you know,
That's
yeah,
important.
you got to start somewhere. Starting at the same is a pretty good place to start sometimes.
Look, if they're genuinely competitive and it's not just off-brand Cursor, that's great. You know?
Right.
That is awesome. The interesting thing I found, actually, I even had one of our devs ask me, like, why would you use Cursor over VS Code and GitHub, what's the GitHub AI plugin?
Copilot.
Copilot.
Yeah.
Wow, so relevant 6 months ago, so irrelevant now.
Yeah.
Crazy how fast it moves. And the answer is that it seems like the VS Code devs have been moving a little too slow on adding things like the composer feature where Cursor will diff for you in line actively as you go. Like imperative feature, you're so much faster like that.
You know what I think the VS Code phenomenon is really just a case of big company comes in and optimizes something, and big companies are pretty good at optimization, but innovation is not their strong suit.
Not their forte.
So even VS Code was originally Atom from GitHub,
Yep.
and that was innovative because it was built on Electron and web technology.
Yep.
And then VS Code came in, and VS Code, I think VS Code really took over Atom because it was fast. And also the acquisition, but also it was very fast, and that's like because people were always ragging on Atom for its.
And it was also very wise in what they decided to embed and what they decided to defer to extensions. That's really important because the problem with Eclipse always, in my opinion, was it just came so bloated.
Yeah.
Whereas VS Code comes so lightweight. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. There were probably some influences there, like Sublime Text was so fast.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely. I mean, fast really matters. And there is a definite question here of like, how does the trade-off look between, we now have like gigahertz times 4, to throw at a single process. You could dedicate 4 cores at like multi-gigahertz spectrum to your IDE as a developer. If you really wanted to, if it did something really useful, it ran the LLMs locally.
Right.
That's some serious grunt, and we kind of just eat it up. And sometimes you eat it up poorly by running inefficient web technologies for argument's sake as the back end. And then someone comes in and optimizes and you're like, damn, actually, we got a whole heap of this left. Let's go.
Yeah, it keeps happening where the language that you're more productive in, people are naturally going to start making it optimized for use case specific applications. Python is another great example where Python was considered very, very slow, but NumPy came in. Optimization's down to Fortran in NumPy. It literally has Fortran code in it because it's faster than C. And it's great now. It's used for all machine learning, and nobody's saying like, oh, you should do that in C. Nobody's saying that.
Yeah, it's like an architectural layer on top of it. It's like why would you want to structure your LLMs in C when you can do it in PyTorch?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The other example is that now with typing in Python, there are at least a couple of projects to cross compile to C.
Right.
And run like full machine code from Python, which is cool. I haven't actually used it myself. Have you touched it?
The first thing that came to mind, not for optimization, but MicroPython is kind of like a subset of this category of things, right?
Yeah,
like
true.
I think it just takes the Python and turns it into C, and then suddenly you're more portable. Yeah. But I could be wrong. What are some frameworks here?
MicroPython actually it runs a full interpreter on your microcontroller.
You're kidding.
No, it does, dead set. And it'll cross compile the bytecode first for the efficiency's sake. Rather than passing all of the text live as it's trying to execute, because that is very inefficient in comparison. But it'll interpret Python on your microcontroller.
Oh, so okay, I had this completely wrong. MicroPython is a tiny Python interpreter, and you are actually sending it Python. So that means you could also do like dynamic Python execution and stuff like that.
You actually can execute. So if you have a Jupyter notebook, you can mark certain functions or cells as being for the microcontroller, and it will remote execute those on your micro. And so you can do your development in line in sort of a single
You can do microcontroller development in a Jupyter notebook?
Yeah, of course.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. A lot to piece together here. First of all, why?
Well, so if you've got handling a complex API with remote procedure calls and all sorts, kind of annoying. So
That's
if you're
true.
trying to develop, in the case I saw it used for was some like embedded image processing.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, the like core library was written in C. It was compiled down. It was running bare metal, but the coordination layer was complex and there was a lot of tuning involved and all that type of stuff. And so by making it portable between your desktop environment and your microcontroller, you could load some images up on your desktop, like shim them in as if they'd come from the camera, execute your algorithm on the microcontroller without having to flash it.
Right.
And then get your development cycle super tight, which is pretty cool. You know?
Yeah, that's super cool. Oh my gosh. Wow. For image processing, that makes more sense than, that makes a ton of sense.
I think we could see it with control algorithms as well. Like I think if we've discussed distributed controls a few times before, but I see it the same as kind of PyTorch in the sense that if you have a control scheme and you might say, I want to coordinate some kind of sensor input, a PID, my servo loop, some kind of Cartesian controller or like cascading controller for multiple coordinate systems in synchronization, you might take those elements and those elements are implemented in C and you just string them together, inputs to out in Python on your microcontroller. And that way you can play with your robotics controllers very plastically, very easily.
Yeah.
Without having to recompile your whole code base, which is so advantageous sometimes,
Yeah, that's huge. I guess like that's really interesting. I guess like, is it the case often that like a microcontroller needs like, I guess like a couple parameters to be tuned and it's useful to have it in this feedback loop with a computer?
Oh yeah. You often have to tune these types of things.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing controls on a micro, which is, one of the more common use cases, right? Whatever, everything from a motor control or refrigerative loop I'm somewhat familiar with.
Right.
You need to dial in these parameters, and often what you'll end up with is a rough parameter from simulation. Some sim team says, hey, look, we've implemented the controls in Simulink. Here are the PID constants we got to. You implement it on the microcontroller, and now you're running it on a real world device, and you want to continue to dial it in across temperature ranges and all sorts of stuff. Now, you can, for every sort of point on your matrix of values you want to try, you can recompile your firmware. Now, that stinks. If you can just change the parameter somehow, that's pretty cool,
Something I've noticed with LLMs is they've started to take code and make it a lot more like data in some ways, right?
Okay, yeah.
So like, and I think we've talked about this before, but like it almost is like, I wonder if I want to send an algorithm to the microcontroller to run instead of just the data, just the parameters. Does some form of that actually happen? Like, do you send like which algorithm you want to use or something like that? Like, is this where it's going?
That's what I think MicroPython can do very well for you. Exactly that. Because all of a sudden, the structure of your algorithm in like a Turing complete fashion is now plastic, as opposed to specific parameters that you otherwise need to serialize in some confusing way. I think it's really cool for exactly that reason.
That's pretty cool. One of the things I found whenever I'm working with something visual with LLMs is it's really hard to get a good feedback loop. And I wonder, I think about my feedback loop. I save file, the browser updates, I see the new image, right? Yeah. And I'm like, could that translate to the physical world? Like you've got this arm that's kind of shaky, whatever, at the endpoint or something. And then can it use that video image data to tweak this thing out? We're probably a little bit away from it, but...
You mean like a video compensation of a robot arm?
I mean like... the things that LLMs can't do right now, it seems to be things where there's a feedback loop that's not text. It's not textual, right?
Insufficient data kind of problem.
Insufficient data. And then usually the thing you need to read is like really hard to read. Like you need a human there to read it. Like, that human intuition that something's a little bit off or
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy what you're able to feed to even like multimodal LLMs now. Like, you can give a snippet of video to Quen, for example, or images, obviously. To
Do you like Quen?
I've actually never used it. I've just read about.
People keep telling me it's really nice. I haven't used it though.
I've heard it's incredible. I haven't actually touched it myself, but I've heard it's really good. So much for 10 years behind. It was like, I think it's people maybe 6 months ago for that comment were saying that the Chinese LLMs will be years behind. They'll never have anything anytime soon. It really did not take long to be neck and neck competitive now, did it?
Yeah. What do we know about Quen? I'm not super familiar about it. Maybe we can piece together what we know. But it's Chinese. It's based on Llama. Is that right?
I don't believe that's true for Quen. I believe
Really?
it's a homegrown
It's a new model.
It's a new modle. To my knowledge, Quen is.
Let's check out the benchmark for Quen on Aider. Aider is my favorite code leaderboard. Let's see.
There was a Quen coda, I believe, that was just released that isn't obviously the video snippet one.
That's high.
But it's very high. Yeah, I think is that number 5 at the moment?
Yeah, it's number 5. It's
the Claude 01 preview.
It's basically the best after Claude 01 preview. I barely count as a coding model.
Really?
Because it's too slow.
Oh, okay.
Right? I need to iterate quickly, and it does solve harder problems or hard problems, but like it's not worth the wait for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Quen, as far as I understand it, is vastly, so that's a 32B. Am I reading that correctly? Is Quen 2.5 coda 32 billion, okay, parameter. Do we know what Sonnet is in comparison?
How many parameters? I don't think we know how many parameters Sonnet is.
Yeah,
I don't think they've released that.
Because from what I was reading about Quen the other day is that the Quen coda is vastly more performant per parameter than any of the existing models. Now, I'm not sure if that's true, but if it is, which wouldn't surprise me because Sonnet is an extremely large model, very, very broadly capable as well, rather than being distilled as a kind of coda only model. It's probably in the range of like hundreds of billions of parameters, is it not?
Right. I mean, I would imagine so. Imagine so. I think one thing that people are underestimating is when there is a model that you can just kind of freely use, you can generate a lot of data to train new foundation models.
Yep.
And so you basically have like a kind of a free data set or data set evaluator, and that can help bootstrap other models. So that arms race is going to keep going on.
Wow.
But yeah, that's crazy. A model out of China. Who in China? Do we know?
I don't know any details. I think it was Ant Corporation, like Alibaba.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I believe so. Again,
wow.
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, every once in a while, those guys drop something like Ant Design, a UI framework that was competitive with, I think it was competitive with, I don't know. What was big? Man, that was a while ago. What was a big free UI framework? I can't remember. Material Design?
Material, but what was the one from Twitter? Bootstrap?
Bootstrap, yeah. I think it was a Bootstrap competitor, but a lot of people were adopting it for a while. So Alibaba has got some talent. Do you know any people from the US that work for Alibaba? Or is it safe to say that's like 99% Chinese company?
I've met people in the US who work for TikTok, but never Alibaba. That's the only Chinese company. Oh, and actually, DJI. I know people who have worked for DJI.
DJI, the drone company, right?
DJI, the drone company, yeah. And they're doing some cool stuff. They just dropped an e-bike as well. Did you see that?
I did not.
It's a nice e-bike, really cool.
So how does a drone company get into e-bike manufacturing? That's
I think it's just sort of like little embedded power systems. That's their kind of one of the core disciplines, and they're just really good at it.
It's one of those situations where I think people don't necessarily give the correct attribution to the core competency of a thing. Like, what is it? Yamaha made both pianos and something else that was crazy, like motorcycles.
Yamaha motorbikes and jet skis, and Mitsubishi. Most of their businesses, heavy equipment, air conditioners. They make some cars because I guess why not? But it's really the side of things.
Yeah, I mean, what is the core competency that underlies these things? And it, like, to some extent, like I want to say, it might be embedded systems, right? Like
for DJI, I think embedded power systems. Yeah.
Really? It's all about power. Okay.
It's like they've also got incredibly good embedded control systems. But I think that's less relevant to their bike. I honestly, I don't know what kind of controls are running in the background. Maybe there's something magical there that makes it like feel awesome.
Right.
But compared to, doing like position and optical flow control on a drone. I doubt it's quite that level of complexity.
Right. Oh man, so interesting. All right, we got another topic here. Let's see. So mom board, an e-ink display for a parent with amnesia. This was trending on Hacker News, 2,000 upvotes. People were very, very into the mom board. Yeah. So basically what we have is an e-ink display. Let me pull up the...
Is that just an off-the-shelf e-reader?
Yeah. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I also have this e-reader for the same kind of purpose. So yeah, off-the-shelf e-reader and a lot of interesting system choices with making this board. But conceptually, here's what the mom board does. This mom has amnesia and she can't remember what her kids have basically just texted her. And so what they did is they put this e-ink screen somewhere in the house on a windowsill or something where the mom can always see it. She's always reminded what that kid just texted. And she doesn't forget as easily. So kind of a cool thing, but I think what it hints at is there is, especially the interest in this project, is there's a huge market for these e-paper displays right now, these e-ink displays for just doing things like, we exist in such a static space right now, right? Like the painting on the wall is the same painting you're looking at every day. The reason I got a Books tablet and built a similar program a similar way, like it just displays a website with some messages or whatever, is I wanted to look at a different vacation photo from with my girlfriend every day. Why have the same photo on the wall?
Are they in color?
Wow,
really?
Yeah, they've just started in color, and my girlfriend says it looks like kind of like a washed out watercolor painting. So it's not very good, but it does have a little bit of a backlight, like just enough where I think it's aesthetically pleasing. People talk about the frame and other TVs that kind of look like pictures, but at night those things are going to be very bright still.
In comparison.
They're not going to look great.
My parents run an iPad with a constant reel of family photos from the last, I guess.
Oh, you're kidding.
50 years or something.
No way.
Dad manually scanned in an enormous number of our family photos. Great. And like his photos for decades. And it's just so cool because now we have this incredible archive of them. It's really awesome.
Yeah. It's just like really nice to, I know even like if I have guests over or something, they can look at your screen on the wall and be like, oh, what the heck is that? Because you got some weird photo up. And then you have conversational topics, you know?
Yeah.
And when you're fighting, you look at the screen and you're like, all right, I guess
you don't suck that much.
But anyway, the mom board. Have you done anything with e-ink displays? I mean, like, I really want more to happen here. I think everybody does, but
I think it's cool. I think it's one of those technologies that's always been looking for its purpose because we've had them for a couple of decades at this point. The one thing that I'd quite like, have you seen a project Meshtastic?
Meshtastic? I don't think so.
It's actually one of the things Lucy's been playing with as well. It's an open source project that does LoRa-based mesh communicators. And so some of them can Bluetooth to your phone and you can, like send a message on your phone and have it go over a cellularless WAN network that you and your friends set up. The reason I specifically want it is because when I'm skiing or backpacking, I might be kilometers away from my mates and I don't really need to talk to them live. Like a walkie-talkie is kind of annoying in some ways.
Right.
But I want them to have ideally my location and a message over the course of like the next, half hour or something. And so I would love and there is a Meshtastic node that does this today, but the thing that I imagine is like a iPhone-sized e-ink display that has my map, my location, and my friends' locations, and like a nice, almost paper-looking topological map.
Yeah.
Right? Very little power, easy to read. Really cool stuff.
For what it's worth, okay, so the mesh technology and Meshtastic we should definitely talk about. But one thing that's interesting is these Books people make this thing called a Palma, which is an iPhone-sized e-ink tablet. So I wonder if this could be interesting.
Wow.
The Palma.
That's sleek. Beautiful.
So I wonder if you could get something like that. Although, so the mesh network thing is really interesting and pretty unique. So LoRa, long range.
Low power.
Low power.
Yeah.
Low power range.
Yeah.
Is it an acronym?
It's a long range, low power. I can't remember how they chunked up the words and reconstructed them, but
but basically you can communicate over a long distance without using a ton of power. So it's going to last a while.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Meshtastic, what is that?
So it's an open source software and hardware project that they create kind of communicator devices that share a protocol to send messages over this LoRa radio.
Now, Matt, I'm no expert, but I'm also no fool to mesh networking in the sense that I have seen very bad things in Zigbee. So is this an improvement over the Zigbee chaos? You know, so Zigbee is another mesh networking protocol that is a little bit less than standard, and so it's kind of chaotic.
Yeah, I can't speak to it from a user's perspective in Meshtastic. It's been around long enough and there are enough people using it that it's sufficiently standardized that you can send messages. You can do it's like the fundamental core qualifier, you know?
Is this like, you know, like one line to send a message, kind of like easiness, or is it kind of like, I don't know, more complicated? I have no idea.
So from what I understand, there is a app you can use on your phone, and just you can use it as basically a external NIC or a modem, and you Bluetooth hop via BLE to it, and it'll relay the message. And like these have enormous ranges. Like with a couple of high gain antennas, you can get these well over 200 kilometers burning like stuff or power, and that's granted atop things like buildings where you've got a line of sight. But still, 200 kilometers is nothing to sniffle at. It's a significant amount of range for a really low power device.
So let's talk about your dream device. We were talking about requests for proposals. So a small e-paper iPhone sized device uses LoRa to get all of the locations of everybody who's, you know, you want to know the locations of. And so when you're on the ski slopes, you can see where everybody is.
Where everyone is, and just like a general group chat message, like, hey, we're going to go to lunch. And where am I right now? Like when, you know, the problem with Find My Friends or even Slopes, which is much better, is like, I'm going to go to lunch. I will be there soon. And I'm going to be standing in a lift line and there's all sorts going on.
Yes.
Now coordinating with everyone's annoying, but if I can just say, hey, I'm heading here for lunch soon. There's a point on the map. We're all going there and you can see how far away everyone is. You can just coordinate.
You know, honestly, I think there's a startup here. I think there's a big startup here. But you need a transmitter. So is there like a base station that's...
So there's some clever stuff you can do, right? Like firstly, the protocol's super low power. So even if you're transmitting constantly, the things would easily last a day.
Okay.
Now, if you want to go well beyond that, which for an outdoorsy type device, I'd certainly expect, you can do things like have it wake up every minute for the first 3 seconds of the minute, right? And you synchronize them based on GPS. So they're very precisely synchronized and they all wake up at the same time, transact and shut off again.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so by time multiplexing that, you can significantly reduce the power required.
Interesting. So how far would a cell phone size thing be able to transmit? Can it transmit pretty far?
It depends on the conditions wildly, but like anywhere line of sight out to a horizon that you couldn't imagine, you know,
super
like
far,
super far. Yeah.
Maybe in like blizzard conditions, tougher, but
it's low enough frequency, or it can be. You can do it on 433 or 900 meg, depending on your region. And so on either of those cases, you can punch through a lot. I doubt a blizzard would be a problem for it, but a mountain, like you're not getting to the other side of it.
Yeah.
So you're kind of relying on the meshness of it. If you've got a buddy at the top of a ridge and you're on either side, you can relay messages around.
So I think this is huge. I know cell phones are nice. Smartphones are nice. They can do a lot of stuff, but
aren't good.
If you're skiing, you don't want to take off your gloves.
No.
I also don't want to be constantly taking out my $1,000 device and getting it wet.
No. Yeah.
And it's also really hard to see the screen in that bright sunlight. So if you could make something that's cheaper, uses e-ink, and really has physical hardware buttons.
Or the e-ink's great because you can imagine one of those retractable cords, right? You have it go to your chest, you pull it off, you look at any messages.
Amazing.
And if you want to communicate to it, I would rely upon my iPhone's hardware to do voice translation. And you hit a button, you talk, text pops up, sends, easy peasy. You don't need the advanced hardware in there. It can last for days. And you just, in the case that you just want to send messages here and there, you let your iPhone do the translation. You got all the power and software there.
So the iPhone does the translation. So how do you look on the ski slope? Do you have an iPhone on one side?
Well, you have an earbud in.
You got an earbud.
And so you just, you've got a device. You pull
you're
it down,
you're like in some Mission Impossible villain kind of setup here. Everybody's on the
slopes.
slopes.
On my snowboard, dude. It's like
you're a snowboarder, not a skier.
Well, historically, I don't ski very well, but I did get some skis out of a dumpster last year, and I intend to use them this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's actually why I have snowboarded historically, is because somebody gave me a snowboard and I was like, well, I have one.
Yep.
Not exactly the right size, but
Maybe not the... yeah.
all right, let's see what else we have here.
Oh, that's... Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I heard about this. And so apparently there's a whole bunch of YouTube videos that are broadly available because people accidentally bumped the share to YouTube button on old iPhones.
That's right. So between 2009 and 2012, there was a share to YouTube button before Apple hated Google. And it was really easy to create a YouTube video just from your iPhone.
Yep.
And so somebody has put together all of these videos into a channel you can watch.
Just like recording of someone's TV.
Yeah. And it's almost like just kind of looking at, because a lot of these were accidental uploads, it's kind of like looking at just,
Do they do any filtering on this, or is this just like absolute raw?
it's totally random. So we have no idea what we're going to see. It didn't get banned from YouTube.
Yeah. That's true. YouTube has filtered it, so it's probably nudity and violence free, which is a good thing for us.
And what's weird to me when I was watching these is I was like, I feel uncomfortable, maybe because I'm glimpsing in, but also because like things were really different.
Okay, what did you notice?
It's just like not everybody's on their phone. There's videos of schools and kids at school and stuff like that, and it's just like people are nervous in a different way to be on camera. Like if somebody points a camera at me, my first reaction is more anger than like shyness, right? But cameras used to make people shy, not angry. Start getting recorded.
Wow, that's incredible.
Anyway, what were you doing in 2009 to 2012?
I was in school, high school. I went to 2012. I went on exchange to Germany for roughly 9 weeks. And I remember because there were all the like 2012 going to be the end of the world type stuff.
Oh my gosh, that's right. What were you doing 2012, end of the world?
End of the world. Well, see, we were 16, and in 16 in Germany, you're allowed to drink beer and wine. And with a note slip from your parents, you can go to a club. And so we went clubbing for the end of the world.
You show that to the bouncer?
Yeah, no, you're literally like in crayon, like my mom says it's fine. And like, whatever, you have a couple of like...
This sounds like an accept cookies thing. That's what it sounds like. Anybody can make these notes, but you have to the bouncer has to check the friggin' note.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember that specifically. What about yourself, mate?
In 2012, I just remember going to bed early. I was like, it might be the end of the world, but I'm tired. So I slept through it. Then I woke up. I was like, good.
Well,
that's nice.
I'm glad the world didn't end. Thank you very much for bringing this little time box to me today.
Yes. Thanks, Matt.
I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.